Welcome to Barn Banter, the podcast by Horse Illustrated. Each month, we bring guests to educate, entertain, or inspire you as you pursue the horsey lifestyle, plus an adoptable horse with a unique story. I'm Susan Friedland, an equestrian author, blogger, and speaker with a soft spot for off-track thoroughbreds. You can find me at my blog, saddleseekshorse.com, or on Facebook or Instagram at saddleseekshorse.
And I'm Holly Kakamis, editor-in-chief of Horse Illustrated and Young Rider magazines. You can find us at horseillustrated.com, youngrider.com, and Horse Illustrated and Young Rider on Instagram and Facebook.
Hey, Holly. Happy October. Guess what?
What?
My birthday's coming up, but I'm at the age where it's really not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, I've had enough birthdays to where I don't need a whole party anymore, but still, happy birthday. It's always good.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Good to celebrate.
I am really excited about October for many reasons. One of them is I get to go back to retired racehorse projects, Thoroughbred Makeover, with a couple of my favorite fellow equestrian authors, Sarah Hickner and Sarah Welk-Bainham. And we were there last year and had a little booth, and it was so fun. It was, we kind of came up with the moniker, it was the happiest horse show on earth.
Oh, I'm so jealous because I live in California now. I've never gotten to go. I love thoroughbreds. I used to live in Kentucky, but it was before they had the event, so I'm so jealous. It was really cool.
So we won Best Booth. It was an award because we had a really cute little setup, and it was so fun.
I see it.
Yeah, fellow thoroughbred fans, fellow horse book fans, and so we're headed back there. It is October 9th through the 12th, and then from there, I'm going to make a little road trip down to the Tryon area.
Oh, man, another place I have not been because it really developed after I moved out of Kentucky, and now I'm so far.
Just hop on a plane, meet me there, because I'm doing the coolest thing. I was invited to do a virtual story time at this rescue called Red Bell Run, and we're doing a virtual author reading. So I'm going to read a bit of Misty of Chincoteague, and then I'm going to read a bit of Marguerite, Misty, and Me, and then have like a live Q&A. It's going to be on Facebook. It'll be on their Facebook page on October 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it can live there forever, and you don't have to, be in the Tryon area. And then the next day, I'm going to a bookstore that looks super cute. It's in Landrum, South Carolina, called Page and Flame, and I'm doing a book signing there. And then in the evening, I'm going to be speaking my kind of stump speech about Marguerite Henry and her relationship with Misty, called Trotting on the Trail of Marguerite Misty, and that's at the Tryon Depot. So
the life of an author, very busy.
Yeah, that's fun. But I'm really excited about our guest today, Dr. Elizabeth James. I met her very, very briefly, but earlier in the year, you and I were both in Kentucky at the American Horse Publications Conference, but I don't think you were there for the little field trip we took.
Yes, I always miss the Thursday field trip, which sounded really fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. So one of the stops on the field trip was, a lot of our listeners will probably be familiar with Dan James from Double Dan.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's their farm. I believe it's in Midway. And they did a show for us, and there was Roman riding, and there was, horses like galloping up to Dan and then rearing, like just all the things that they're trained to do at Liberty. I think they work a lot with the movies and
my childhood dream come true, it sounds like.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And Elizabeth was there, and she has an off-track thoroughbred that she actually did retired racehorse projects, Thoroughbred Makeover, and she started, well, because they're in Kentucky, so thoroughbreds aren't that hard to find, but so she learned how to do Liberty from her husband and maybe the other Dan, that's the part of Double Dan. And so she was showing us some of these maneuvers and, getting, I think the horse's name is Ozzy, to jump, like a barrel and you're there and you don't have a halter or a lunge line or anything. And you're whatever the subtle cues are, I don't know. But it was really neat to be there, see the farm, see their adorable kids. We're part of the show too. And so that was fun. So it'll be great to get to know her a little bit more today.
Yes, she has a pretty interesting story, which is why we wanted to get her on this month. So I mean, we didn't have, hours and hours, but I think just even touching on a few interesting points along the way is going to be pretty fun. So
yeah, I'm excited too, because I didn't really know much about Liberty. I did just have a few weeks ago a lesson, because there is a cowboy trainer that comes that does Liberty work, and he comes to the barn where I board night. And so the farm owner said, hey, his name's Mark, is going to be in town. Do you want to do a lesson? And I was like, well, why would I do that? Night is not going to Hollywood. But it occurred to me, why not try all the things, And one of the things that I shared with Mark and the lesson we had, he did a lot of kind of philosophical talk about liberty, because it was like, okay, what is this exactly? I don't understand this discipline. And then I shared with him that, Knight is a really good boy, has excellent ground manners. But if there's one thing, I wouldn't call it a vice, but when I try to lead him out of his stall, or if I try to lead him from the aisle of the barn into the wash rack, he just stops. And it's not like a horse refusing to go into a trailer where they get all wild and backing up and crazy. It's just like he kind of stops, and I can just almost hear him going, oh, whoa, and so I'm tugging on the lead rope and I'm kind of pulling. And I did a few years ago, a boarder who's not there anymore was like, you really need to train him better. And I just thought, always, how the much older horsewomen know everything about training.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, if this is the worst he does, is he hesitates for like 5 seconds, and then he always does come into the wash rack or go into his stall or come out of the stall. Is it really something to deal with? But all that to say, I shared this with Mark, who is also a Liberty trainer, and he showed me a few things, and I have never really had Knight walk alongside me, like where I'm at his shoulder. It's usually like I'm dragging him along.
And I feel like every horse I've had has been a dragger, and then except for one, drug me. So I'm with you. It's hard. It's such a hard thing to train. I don't know why.
So I don't know what happened, and it was, it's all new to me. I used a whip, obviously not for beating a horse or anything, but it was like almost like a pointer type situation. And I don't even know what it's called, but it's not as long as a lunge whip, and it's longer than a dressage whip. And so there was a learning curve, and I really felt like I was learning choreography of like how my body is supposed to be positioned, and then how to hold the whip. And what was really amazing is the other thing I do just for Knight's kind of like physical therapy routine and stretches is I back him up at the end of a ride, unmounted, just to back him up. And I feel like I can't get him going very straight, and I always do it with the bridle. So I have the little bit of leverage, with the reins and stuff. But so what was really cool is Mark showed me like how to hold the whip and to on the ground get him to back up. And it was so fluid and seemed almost effortless. And it was like, I just don't know the right buttons to push to get Knight to do some of this Liberty type stuff. So it's cool.
Well, that's inspiring. I think, from talking to Elizabeth, it sounds just like a great bonding exercise, and, taking the riding out of it. It's just the type of thing we all kind of grew up dreaming of, and the relationship with our horse. So it's really for everyone. And I think it'll just keep getting more popular, and I'd love to take a lesson and learn a few things, and it sounds really cool.
Yeah. She'll also, I'm sure, tell us about there's a big event that is going on at Kentucky Horse Park, and it's like a Liberty Festival. And
Yes.
Amber Marshall from Heartland, I read a press release, is going to be there. So that's cool. Maybe I'll get to meet Amber.
We've got a lot of Heartland fans out there. So,
is there anything, I feel like I've just been monopolizing. Is there anything we should know about you in October?
It is like 100 degrees here right now as we record, but September and October are the hottest months for some reason in Orange County. So we're just kind of dealing with that, trying not to ride too much because the horses just need a little break during this, like the only weather we can't ride in. So I guess don't feel too sorry for me. But
I don't. I don't.
What's going on?
Because I see the Instagram and you're like cantering along on this beautiful trail, and
it's pretty fun. So we're just kind of taking it easy right now. Not too much going on. Still flies, but come November 1st, the heat and flies will all just disappear like clockwork. So looking forward to that.
Amazing. Well, should we get on with our show?
I think we should.
Okay. All right. This is going to be fun.
All right, here is our interview with Dr. Elizabeth James. Because mobility matters for every horse, look to Adequan IM, polysulfated glycosaminoglycan. For over 30 years, veterinarians, trainers, and owners have trusted Adequan. Ask your veterinarian if Adequan is the right choice for your horse. Learn more at adequan.com.
Hey, Elizabeth, thank you for coming on our show. We're really thrilled to have a chance to talk to you. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and it's such an exciting time. So it's nice to take a break from everything else and get to talk with you guys. And again, thank you just for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about your Liberty Festival, which I'm really excited to learn more about. I just recently took one Liberty lesson with my off-track thoroughbred, but more on that later. But you grew up in Montana, is that right?
I did.
Were you a rancher, or what were you doing in Montana?
I was one of those girls. I was the crazy horse girl that didn't get to grow up having horses. So, but that's hard in Montana because everyone, it feels like, had horses growing up but me. And so we were really blessed that we had some friends that had a farm, and they would let us come and ride and work cattle with their horses. And so that was kind of, my childhood growing up. We were just really lucky to have people that shared their horses with us. And then I went and worked at a bunch of dude ranches out of high school just to kind of get around horses. I actually started out cleaning guest cabins the first summer, trying to work my way to the horse side, and eventually did. And then I didn't get my first horse until I was 22, 23, and it was an off-the-track thoroughbred. So I always tell people, like, if you're the crazy horse girl, you don't have to grow up with a family or horses, because there's so many people whose story is so similar to mine that, it happened later in life for me.
And one of the things we share in common is I'm an educator, but you are a doctor, but you have your doctorate from the University of Kentucky in experiential education. I know this doesn't have anything to do with horses. Maybe it does. But I'm dying to know, what is experiential education?
That is such a great question. And a teacher is a teacher. So it doesn't matter what degrees you have. Teachers are all teachers at heart. And it's such a great calling. For me, I was there in the equine program, and I had a teaching appointment, and then I ran the internship program. So at UK, University of Kentucky, our internships were mandatory. They weren't required. And so I really got interested in, if you require an internship, is there benefit to that? Right. And so what I was trying to look at was, in a lot of schools, internships are optional. So the best students, the kind of go-getters are the ones that do internships, but the rest of them don't. And then on the flip side of it, on schools that require it, is there a benefit to that? And that's what I just got really excited about it and kind of started doing some research. And that was what led to that degree.
Very cool. All right. And I don't really know where to go next, but I feel like there's a love story of some sort, and not just with an off-track thoroughbred that you train to do Liberty. So you're married to Dan James and you have 2 kids, but maybe would you be able to share how you guys met? Is it a
Sure,
fun story? Like you
absolutely.
saw him from across the room and
Yeah, I didn't. That is
oh,
not how it. No, I again, it goes back to, so I was at UK for 10 years and I did the internship program and I had students. Dan came over at the World Equestrian Games, and so I had students that knew of him long before I did. And so they wanted to internship with this Australian. And I'll be honest, like I grew up in the Clinton Anderson era. So I was like, oh, another Australian that's amazing with horses. They had a policy at UK that if you sent more than 2 students, you had to go in person just to make sure it was legit. I mean, you're sending students and you just meet them and develop kind of a relationship. And so I actually met him that way. And we were friends for many years. I sent him a lot of interns. He was traveling back then, so he was kind of all over the US. And when he would need full-time employees or interns, we just had a great relationship. And so we were friends for a lot of years. And then, yes, we did get married. But again, kind of on the horse side of it, I was like everyone else. Like I saw Dan work his horses at Liberty and back then, like Liberty clinics weren't what they are now. They're everywhere now a little bit, but they weren't back then. So I was also like the crazy horse person. It's one thing to watch him do it, but of course that's not good enough for any of us, right? And so then I wanted to learn how to do it for my horses. And that was how I started Liberty. So we were married. I was pregnant, and I did a clinic with him here at the farm and just kept doing them because we were so busy that to get his time and to learn it, honestly, that was the best way. So just like everyone else, I wanted to know how to do it myself with my horses and not just like work and be around his amazing horses. And that was kind of how I got into Liberty.
all right. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with Liberty,
Yes.
what is it? Please demystify it for us.
That is such a great question. I think Liberty, as a discipline, Liberty at its finest form is anything where the horse is completely at liberty. So the horse has no tacker equipment, no physical connection with the rider, and is doing everything at liberty. So that can be bridleless. The purest form of it would be bareback and bridleless, for example. Or it can be, you and your horse or you and multiple horses in an arena. I think where we where the whole ILHA thing took off was that Liberty is like any other discipline. So even as amazing as Dan is, he doesn't go out into the pasture. I'm married to him. I know this now. And just like magically horses run up and rear on command. And so it's very much like any other discipline. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. We all have to start somewhere. So that was really the idea kind of behind the ILHA, was that unless you were at the Dan James level, Guy McLean, Luke Gingrich, all those levels, there wasn't anywhere for people like myself who love Liberty to go and perform, to go and compete, to take their horse and do something with it. And they always say that horse people are so crazy that we pay people to judge us at our hobby. And so that was so true. And with Liberty, there really wasn't anywhere for the average person or people who had aspirations of doing it professionally to go and compete and perform. And that was really why we created the ILHA.
And that is, can you tell us what that acronym stands for?
Yeah, so the ILHA is the International Liberty Horse Association, and we launched that in 2018. And we called it the International Liberty Horse Association, honestly, because Dan's Australian and I'm American, so it gets hard to not call things international. And we did our first show at the horse park in 2019 and then started doing virtual shows actually before COVID. And again, that came back to a lot of the people who love Liberty and were showing couldn't afford or didn't have the time to go to a horse show for a weekend. And we wanted to make it accessible for them. And also Liberty horses, in a lot of ways, it's intimidating to take a horse that's at Liberty at your home arena and then take it somewhere else. And so we wanted to kind of bridge that gap that people could start to compete and get comfortable before they were all of a sudden in the covered arena at the horse park. So that was a little bit the idea behind the association.
So when you first started learning Liberty and, pursuing that discipline, was there anything you had to unlearn from just, general riding and horsemanship? Were there any moments where you were like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this before? Or this is really challenging?
It's such a great question. It's funny you asked that because, like I said, the first horse that I got was an off-the-track thoroughbred. And he was amazing and he taught me so much. And by the time Dan and I got married, he was 16. And so, of course, this is, the horse that I love. This is the horse that I wanted to do Liberty with. So, I really wanted to work with him. And Dan was like, look, you can. But for example, like a thoroughbred, I lunged him a lot, to take the edge off, to warm him up. And so he's like, you really can't take a horse that you've taught to go away from you, you've taught to lunge, and then expect it to come to you. And so he's like, if you really want to, you can, but it's going to be hard for him. And he's like, and it's really not fair to him at that age to do it. So he was really good. And he says that to me. He was like, if that's your only horse and stuff like that, you can relearn it. But in fairness to horses at that age. So then I kind of was like, okay, so I need to get a younger horse to practice it with. And that's where Ozzy came in. We live in Lexington, Kentucky. Free was our price range at the time. And so we called around, and that was how I got Ozzy. Dan had a call for a movie job, and they needed a black horse, and kind of, I just called some friends if they had one. But he was a makeover horse. And so the first part was, like you said, learning just the whole interaction with him and, having him come to you. But I also competed with him in the makeover under the ridden work, and seeing the transfer of, I would do 2 separate sessions. So I do a ridden session with him, and I do a Liberty session with him, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, because they're just so different. And seeing that the learning transfer from one to the other was probably the most shocking to me. Like I understand now, because Dan gets a lot of problem horses, and he starts them at Liberty, and like we get them, they're track horses or they're, high level eventing horses. And I didn't make the connection of why that mattered. And the best way that he explained it was, in Liberty, horses learn how to learn. So much of my life, I'm an educator at heart, you are as well. It's not that they weren't learning, they were solving problems, but it was mechanical. You can teach a horse lead change, but you can also really physically help them, and kind of push them into one where they might not mentally have made the connection of what just happened. And so that process maybe is slower. It's not that they don't learn it, it just takes longer. Whereas I felt like watching my horse learn at Liberty, it became, I hate to say a game, but like a game, it became something for him to solve. And that really transitioned into the riding. And it was shocking for me. So there was a lot when I first started at Liberty that, growing up, just hopping on horses and going, I didn't know much about horse psychology.
And would you say that kind of is the underlying piece a bit, is the psychology of? I
think it's the psychology. I mean, I'll be honest, for me, I don't consider myself, I'm not the professional trainer or performer. I think there's a lot of people like me that want to have the relationship with their horse. They want to feel like their horse is having fun. They want to see their horse's personality. They want him to express themselves. And I think for me, that relationship of it, of learning with him, and I really felt like, especially with him, like we were learning together, but also just kind of watching that unfold and stuff, that relationship part, I think horse people, I mean, I would say all of them, I'm sure you can find exceptions, but they want that relationship with their horses. And for me, I could find it in Liberty in ways I couldn't in ridden stuff. Now I still ride. There's a lot I want to do with horses. I'm not, advocating don't ride, just do Liberty, but there was a relationship there. And honestly, when I got pregnant and, wasn't going to ride, I could still play and learn, and he could still, as a thoroughbred, so sitting in the pasture is not going to help him mentally, but I could do so much more with him than just groom him or lunge him. And so it really opened up so many possibilities of things to do with your horse that I didn't know even existed before that.
So give us a couple concrete examples. And by the way, I did see some of the photos of you. I think it was from Retired Racehorse Project Makeover, bridleless and saddleless. And so like, what are some, if you're on the ground doing Liberty, like what would be some of the coolest things that Ozzy can do? Yeah. And, or maybe like what would be a basic thing that really anyone, like what's the entry level Liberty?
So I'll be honest, it's funny. Some of the things that look the coolest to people are the easiest to train. And some of the things that don't look very cool to people are hardest to train. So for example, I feel like wherever I go with Ozzy, people want to know how to teach the lay down. And the lay down really isn't a challenging maneuver. Some horses, take longer maybe to put it together than others, but it's a natural movement for horses.
Mm-hmm.
And once they find rest there, I've found that even now when I go out to work, and there'll be a lot of times that he'll just kind of offer the lay down because it's easy. So I think that was one of the ones that at first I was like, I've got to teach this. Like I was so excited. So I think that was probably one of the ones that was the coolest specific maneuver for me to teach. I think one of the hardest ones that I didn't realize, and I've been working a lot on it lately, and you saw it, Susan, when you were here, is the jumping at Liberty. It's one thing when the jump is against the rail, but I've been pulling that jump off of the, rail, like, and bringing it out to the center where really when they're at Liberty, they can very easily, and it's not easy like a lay down. So it's not, it takes effort to jump. And I think that's probably been the most fascinating to kind of work with him through that. And, you can't, everyone talks about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Like you can't negative reinforce in those situations because if horses get scared, if they get anxious, like they're just going to avoid that jump like the plague. And so, making it fun for him to jump and he's a thoroughbred, so he loves to jump. You're not trying to make a horse that doesn't jump something. That's something he's drawn to. But then really the discipline for him to do that, not just when he wants to or when I'm standing there or when it's against the rail. So that for me has been so interesting, but also so rewarding. And you were there, like when he does do it, or if he goes by it the first time and goes back and does it, like that moment is so cool because it's such his choice.
Mm-hmm. And is that kind of the essence too? Like when you're doing Liberty work, it's the horse is consciously making the decision to offer these different movements or behaviors.
I mean, we all know the feeling when we go out to get our horse, and even if you have feed or if you don't, when they come up to you, when they choose to leave the herd or grass or whatever they're doing and come to that feeling again, we're relational at heart. That feeling is amazing. And I think Liberty is kind of that on crack. So you're in an arena and you're, asking him to do things, to walk, to trot, to canter, to lay down, to bow, to roll up, to jump. And they're choosing in all of that, confused, not confused, fresh, not fresh, tired, hot, whatever they are, to stay with you and engage with you. And that feeling it reminds me of how those of us who have dogs feel about our dogs. You can't get your dog to leave you. And that's a great feeling because they just want to be with you. And I don't know, for me personally, I always felt like my horses, loved me and we had a bond and stuff like that. But, did they make that choice often? You don't know because you have a halter on or you're on them. But when it came to Liberty, watching him make that choice day after day and watching him some days not make the choice and knowing then that like they're not a robot was just, I mean, I hate to say addicting, but that feeling is unlike anything else.
It's really cool. Well, I guess mid-October, you have your very big event going on, and maybe you can share about the Liberty Festival. And will you be performing? What can people expect to see there?
That's a great question. So, like I said, when we started the ILHA in 2019, it was just a show for people, and we did a nighttime show. But as the association grew, what we found was people kept saying, hey, I like Liberty, but how do I get started? I like Liberty, but I want to learn more and stuff. And so in 2022, we did the first Liberty Festival. So we kept the championship show, the ILHA classes and stuff, but then we brought in clinicians. And we really wanted to, because Dan and I are married and Dan teaches Liberty, we wanted to make sure that the ILHA is its own standalone platform. It has nothing to do with Double Dan. And so we brought in other trainers. You can't do Liberty without Pat Pirelli. We love Pat, so it was amazing to have him there. We brought out Warwick Schiller, who doesn't do Liberty, but is so much involved in how horses think and psychology and training. So we brought them out, and then we brought in a bunch of different trainers for their kind of special things. So we had Ariana Sakaris did a lay down, like just a bunch of different, it was the reason we called it a festival was just all these Liberty trainers coming together, talking about ideas. We did a whole seminar track that we kind of just were like, well, let's make sure that we utilize the space that we have. And people came and talked about how they use Liberty with veterans and, liberty in coaching and liberty in Tai Chi and, all these different applications of liberty that we were just like, oh my goodness. And so that event has kind of taken on a life of its own, that it's now somewhere that people can come, they can watch liberty, our competitors can compete, they get to do it at the horse park. But people that are like, I just really like liberty, and if I go to an expo, there maybe is one liberty trainer that I'm looking for their sessions every day, and I get this tiny little bit. Or I have to go to a clinician and audit, and I get one trainer's methods and personality, and that we wanted it to be so inclusive. And so this event has just kind of been amazing. We get to bring in people. We really try to make it international. So last year we brought Ben Atkinson over from the UK. He's coming back this year and bringing some horses, which we're super excited about. We have Amber Marshall, obviously coming. She's from Canada. Hansa Balaha is coming from the Czech Republic. We've got Steve Rother from the US. And so we really try to be like, hey, this is one event and all of us liberty crazy people can come and talk and learn from each other and just explore this discipline. And it's not one way, one method, one person. And so it is October 10th through the 13th. It is here in Lexington. We're super excited about it. We'll do a night show on the Saturday night, and that is kind of Dan's baby. So I'm kind of the planner. I'm the sticky notes and the scheduling and all of that stuff. And Dan he's so creative, and he puts together the night show. And, true to nature for who he is, everyone's in it. Like so we've got Ben and Amber, Steve. We'll bring in Whispery Pines, Percherons, Versatile Horsemanship, Jessica Blair. We've got all these people that'll come together and put on this nighttime show on the Saturday night. And that's included in the tickets. It's not a separate, it's all part of the festival. We're so excited. And yes, in his mind, I'm performing in it. We're having a little moment because I'm like, I can't, I'm so busy. And he's like, you have to. So, we'll just have to see how that happens. But he's definitely in it. And hopefully, there'll be somewhere that I can sneak down there and do something with Ozzy.
Oh, okay. So I just have to ask, will there be Roman riding, or is that not considered liberty?
I can confirm that there will be Roman riding. We've got a couple different, who it'll be. It'll depend on which horses Ben brings over. If he brings one of his teams that rides, Jessica also does Roman riding, and then obviously Dan does. And so,
amazing.
And when you give Dan, like I said, he's so creative. So for him, it's not just enough to have one Roman rider. Like, why not have all of them in the arena at the same time? Like, how could that possibly go wrong? And so it's fun for me, of all the parts of, planning this and getting ready. I get to sit on some of his calls with Ben and sit in some of his production meetings. And that nighttime show is I'm so excited to see it come together.
And you said that's the Saturday.
That's the Saturday, the 12th. It's 7 to 9 just at night.
Amazing. Holly, you've been a little quiet over there. I'm sure you have some questions for Elizabeth.
I do.
Don't want to monopolize.
The first one, and this is just me, probably like prying into your life, but as a mom of a 4-year-old, like, it's so hard to get anything done and like come up with all these plans and do it. Like, how in the world, like, since having kids, have you done all of these things? I just need to know.
Such a good question. Well, first of all, without God, I couldn't do any of it. So, prayer and, laying awake at night with him being like, I don't know how it's going to happen. So, I have to give credit to that. I think, the true answer is, and you guys know this from starting a business, is that, the blessing of starting a business is you start small and it grows, with you. So we didn't kind of get stuck in it, pregnant and in the midst of what it is now. It's definitely grown and evolved as we have gotten better and learn and grow. The biggest answer is having such an amazing team around us. And, Susan, it goes back to you. Like, I'm a teacher at heart. I'm not a horse trainer. I'm not a manager of people. And so those things have been hard lessons that I've learned, to do what we love to do. But I think, surrounding ourselves, and Dan and I talk about this all the time, with like a really good team and letting them, do what they're best at doing and getting lots of feedback and ideas. I think time-wise, I'll be honest, like, that's probably been the hardest part, especially in the early years, is when you're a mom, when you have a business, when you're married, when all those things, what gets pushed to the back is the horse time. And there were a lot of years, just full honesty, that's what these podcasts are, is that there were a lot of years that, I was putting on shows and creating events for people, and it was worth it because it was so fun, but I wasn't working my horse. I wasn't riding. I created the association for people that want to do Liberty, but you can't create an association and then compete in it. And so there was a time there that I really was like, man, like, this is amazing, and I loved it, and it was so rewarding. And it was also like, there was a lot to that I didn't realize I would have to give up. As we've grown in the association, and, you start to get better and you get a good team around you, in the last 2 years, then it's been about discipline. And I'm like, I have to have the discipline to take myself outside. And that's what I love about Liberty, is you really can have a 10 or 15-minute session with your horse. We say we can ridden wise, but we all know by the time you get your horse caught, saddle it up, hop on, you're half hour in, then you ride, you hope you get somewhere good in a half hour, then you got to take, but with Liberty, you really can go out and have a really fun session in a short period of time. And so for me, it just became about discipline to get back to what I love, because otherwise there wasn't enough for it. It was, it was an early business. It wasn't making money, and it was something I really believed in, but I had to do that for myself. And the more that I found myself going to do that, the more excited I got for our members, and the more that I wanted to do for the association. And then this year will be the first year, to get to do something in the night show, with Dan, if we do. And that part of it, that's just kind of an icing on the cake. But I think, to go back to your question, the only way any of us survive, with our faith, with good friends that just listen and support us, and then with a really good team. I mean, Dan is, all of those, he's such a good partner, and he had built Double Dan Horsemanship. And so a lot of the growing pains that the ILHA has gone through as a business, he was so good because he had already experienced that. So, when websites fail and I'm like, oh my gosh, the world's ending, he's like, it's fine. We've been, so that he was so good in so many ways on that, and so encouraging. And again, he's so good at wanting to put other people in the spotlight, that he really believed in the ILHA. And I don't think I could have done it without, all of those.
Awesome.
So if someone is listening and it hasn't really occurred to them that Liberty could be something they do with their horse, like, what would you recommend to them they should do as a first step? Obviously, if they live near Kentucky, or it's not hard to get to Lexington, they need to come to your event. But other than that, like, how could they branch out?
The business side's like, join the association. I don't say that. I'm actually like, until you're ready to compete and show, like, don't put your money into that. I think if someone isn't living here, isn't coming to the Liberty Festival, we are looking at recording sessions to release them after the fact. So we don't do a live streaming just for the sake of, we aren't at a point to rely on internet and hope it goes well. Like, we can't do that to people, but we are trying to record it. And if everything goes well, we'll be able to give those so that people have that starting spot. I think the other thing is, a lot of equine states, obviously have a horse council or Facebook groups, and asking around, like, there's just, last year for the Liberty Festival, we had people that came from 43 states and 8 countries. And so it just, really hit home, what we already believed, which is there really are people in every state. This isn't a pocketed discipline. And so, I would just encourage people, like, wherever they are, whether it's in an equine group or just putting a post out there being like, hey, I'm interested in doing Liberty. Anyone else? Does anyone, do it? And, in this area, practice or clinics, because there are clinicians all over, they can reach out to the association and we can recommend clinicians. A lot of our members put on clinics all over and in different countries. And so we can definitely, that's our job. That's our privilege, to get to connect them with people. But I always say, start small. So instead of dragging your horse, or if you don't even have a horse, go audit a clinic. Find someone on social media that you love what you see. All of the people do clinics that teach Liberty to some degree, and go audit, or, come to the Liberty Festival next year and just see, like, is this something I'm interested in? Is it? And because then you can gradually make that commitment. I think the wrong thing is for people to feel like that they need to pack up their horse and travel all the way, to Kentucky to come to this clinic with this person. So I think there's a lot of ways to get involved in Liberty and get started. And then, I mean, there are a lot of trainers that all have an online program to some degree. And I think there's a lot with Liberty. It's almost easier taught online than written stuff because you can see it. I think written stuff is hard to watch on video because they're like, do you feel that, the horse is doing this and you're watching the video and it's really hard. But at Liberty, you can see what they're doing. You can see the exercise and you can then go repeat that, I think, easier sometimes. So I actually think it's a discipline that really lends itself well to people that have videos, online training. I know our friend Ben Atkinson, he's got an app that he's come out with. A lot of our members do online courses or membership communities where they show. So I think there's so many small kind of get your feet in, see how it is, practice it at home. If it's working, great. If it's not and you've got problems, now you know what to ask at a clinic to get something out of the clinic and just kind of ease along that way.
Where can people learn more about you and the Liberty Association and the Liberty Festival and all that good stuff?
All the good stuff. So the ILHA, the International Liberty Horse Association, their website is libertyhorseassociation.com. And we do have memberships there. One of the advantages of being a member, if that's something that people feel like fits them, is that we have an amazing online community that we host where members, talk about things, host clinics, like connect with other members. We have international members in 6 different countries. So that's all on the libertyhorseassociation.com. They can learn more about the association. We have 98 different classes. So there truly is. We have lead line classes for people that haven't ever turned their horse at Liberty, but they're starting to get there. We have round pen classes. So people that are just starting working their horses in round pens. We do obstacles. So we have a lot of options and they can just go learn about it there. The Liberty Festival has so much information that this year we started our own website just for that because there was just so much to it as its own event. So that's libertyfestival.com, and that's where they can go to find out about the Liberty Festival. They can apply like for next year, obviously, if they want to be a presenter, if they want to come and be a vendor, if they want to find out about tickets. They'll be able to find all that information there. And we do link back and forth between the two. So if someone only remembers one of those, that's okay. You'll get back and forth between the two of them.
And are these on Instagram as separate accounts or one account, or what's the best way on Instagram?
That's a great question. Right now, the ILHA has a Facebook and an Instagram account. And because it puts on the Liberty Festival is an event under the ILHA, but we are now going to break that out. And so going into next year, the Liberty Festival will have its own Facebook page and its own Instagram account. It's been hard for us because it is an event of the ILHA, but we get so many people that come that don't know about the ILHA. They're just coming for the event, and for them to be able to find it and for the identity of the event, we'll separate them out.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you guys. Honestly, I appreciate your guys' time. It's been fun to get to talk to you. And if you have any questions or if there's ever anything I can do to help you guys, please let me know. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk with you.
For special rates on Horse Illustrated and Young Rider magazine subscriptions just for our podcast listeners, visit horseillustrated.com/barnbanter. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and where you guys are located before we get to the horses today.
Yes, my name is Rachel. I am our Farm Animal and Equine Intake Coordinator here at the MSPCA at Nevins Farm. We're located in Methuen, Massachusetts.
Okay, and I grew up as a kid outside of Boston. How far are you from that area?
Depending on traffic, it varies, but about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. So pretty close. So near a lot of our listeners, I would bet, up in the Northeast there. So that's very handy. So we have today 2 super cute ponies, and I can't wait to hear about them. Can you tell us about Bugsy and Muffin?
Yeah, so Bugsy and Muffin are quite the duo. They are looking to go home together. They're pretty much attached at the hip. But I will start off with Bugsy. She's a little bit on the large pony side, I would say. She is a paint pony and just absolutely as cute as can be. She came to us almost a year ago now. And when she first came in, she was not the easiest horse to work with. She was a little skittish, didn't seem to understand a lot of, normal horsemanship. So haltering, coming in and out was a challenge. But since she has been with us for a while, she is one of our easier horses to lead in and out. We frequently use her when we're training new staff or volunteers to work with the horses. So she's been really good about that. We also got to use her for summer camp. So she worked with all of the campers this summer. They did a mini show jumping show where they would run around poles on the ground, and then Bugsy and Muffin would come into the indoor arena and walk the course as well, going over the poles. Bugsy is in her early 20s. So she is looking for a companion-only home. We don't have a lot of history on her, so she's really looking to just be a pasture pet. She loves grooming, would stand there all day if you would groom her. Really good for vet care. She's still learning the farrier side of things, so would really benefit from someone who's willing to take the time and patience to help her with her feet getting done. She gets a little apprehensive about picking those feet up for a long period of time. Her hardest part that she has to deal with is transitions are a little challenging for her. It takes her a while to get into a new routine, but once she's in that routine, she is calm, quiet, and super easy to deal with, and we just all adore her. She's one of our snuggly horses, so all the staff and volunteers like to give her extra attention. So really enjoy having Bugsy around.
Well, she looks like just that cuddly pony that, I agree. Everyone would want to have that cute horse in their pasture.
And the bonus for her is being, a pretty typical pony. She is an easy keeper, does not eat much, and could probably get fat off of thin air if you really watched her. So she's one of those nice, easy keepers.
So she looks like she's about 13 hands, so a little bit on like a larger pony, and then Muffin is 9 hands. So is Muffin a mini or a pony?
Muffin is a Shetland pony.
Okay.
So she is a little bit dwarfed next to Bugsy, but that pony personality, Muffin's got quite an opinion. When Muffin came in, she also did not have a lot of handling skills, was very skittish, was nervous around the staff, did not like to be approached. She did live outside for a little while she was settling into the routine here. Now she is another one that we use with our beginner staff to train them on the horses because she is very easy to catch. She comes right over to you. She's not as snuggly as Bugsy is, but she does like a little bit of attention. She doesn't want you to groom her on a regular basis. And we have discovered she loves kids. She likes them to hang around. We don't think Muffin wants to be a riding horse either, because she is also in her early 20s. And since we do not know what her history was, she strikes us as a horse that would prefer to be handled on the ground. So we used her in summer camp with Bugsy, and she would go and greet all the campers. They would give her treats, which she thought was the best part of her day. And then did really well with the in-hand work while we were taking her over the poles. Both of them really enjoyed that part of their summer where they got to change things up and go work in the indoor arena. They both have very great brains on them, so even if they're adopted as companions, I think they would love to have that in-hand job. So any kind of like liberty work or just hand walking, they really enjoy it.
Okay, and do they have any special medical care that's needed, like joint injections or special supplements, medications, that kind of thing?
Yes, so Bugsy has nothing. She is very healthy, not on any supplements, just grain and hay. Muffin, being the pony that she is, we are a little bit more worried about metabolic issues, so we do keep Muffin on a stricter diet. Since they go out together, they share hay during the day, but Muffin, we do soak her hay to get that extra sugar out at night. So she has soaked hay in her stall with her so that we don't have to worry too much about that.
Okay, but not on Cushing meds or anything. Okay, well, that's great.
No.
Yeah. Well, good. And you said these two are a bonded pair, right? So you're looking to adopt them together only or possibly separate, but mostly looking together?
We are willing to entertain any applications because our goal is to just find the best fit for these two ponies. However, our end goal would be if they could go home together, that is, big win-win and everyone's happy. But if someone came along and are the perfect fit for just one of them, we would definitely entertain that.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yes, if anyone is interested in adopting, they can visit our website, mspca.org. And our list of adoptable animals is on there. There's a little link. You can fill out an application. You can always reach out to the shelter. Email is usually our best form of communications, and that is nevinsfarm@mspca.org.
Perfect. And we'll put their Right Horse links in the show notes so people can click and look through all the cute photos and see more information about them if they're interested. But Rachel, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Holly.
Don't be shy. Show us some barn banter love by leaving a review, and you can tell all your friends too.